All right, your equation f of x equals x squared minus 4x. Find f of negative 3. So wherever you see an x, you have to put a negative 3. 4 times negative 3. So if you were to put this into your calculator, you should, and I would double check me, you should be getting 21. Okay? Right, and then number 2 says, without the use of a calculator, graph y equals 3x squared plus 18x plus 20. Be sure to clearly label the vertex, so that's 1 point, and 2 other points we're going to find. So your vertex formula is to get the x coordinate, you have to do the opposite of b, divided by, please make sure you put the whole thing in parentheses on the bottom. Okay, so to get our x, we're going to do a is 3 and b is plus 18, so it's positive. So we're going to do the opposite of b, which is negative 18, divided by, put this in parentheses, 2 times 3, and we get negative 3. So that's our x coordinate, and now to get our y coordinate, we substitute negative 3 back into our equation. So we do 3 times negative 3 squared plus 18 times negative 3 plus 20, and that should be getting you negative 7. Now, unfortunately, when I made this, I forgot to consider that negative 7 won't fit on the graph, but you're going to go to the left 3 and down 7. And it should be somewhere around there. So that's your vertex, and now you're going to find 2 other points. I'm going to give you the points of, whoa, why aren't you going up? All right, I'm going to give you the points of x equals negative 2, and x equals negative 4. So what you do is you plug in negative 2 now for x. And that should give you negative 4. So now you have a point of negative 2, 4. And then when you plug in negative 4, that should be giving you also negative 4. So now you have 2 new points to plot. Whoops, it should be negative 4, negative 4. Okay, so to the left and down, and there is your parabola. All right, the last one. A projectile is launched with an initial velocity of 24 meters per second from a height of 4 meters. The height h in meters of the projectile after t seconds is found using the equation. So here's your equation. When does the projectile reach the maximum height? So that's going to be the x-coordinate of the vertex, if you want to write that down. And Fatima coordinate does have 2 O's. X-coordinate of vertex, and then what that height's going to be is going to be the y-coordinate of the vertex. Okay? So the opposite of b would be negative 24. So this is me finding the x-coordinate over 2 times negative 4.9. And that's going to be about 2.4 seconds. So hopefully you keyed that in and can double check. All right, and then the maximum height, you're now going to substitute 2.4 into the actual equation. And that should get you 33.4 meters. All right. So if you flip over to the back, I will briefly go through how to find the vertex of the parabola. You're going to be given an equation. Your a is always in front of the x squared. Your b is always in front of the 6. So to get the x coordinate, you do the opposite of b, which is going to be -6. And then you must make sure you put that bottom half in parentheses or do it separately. Because -6 divided by 2 times 1 is -3. Okay, so now you're going to take your -3 and find the y that goes with it. And you should get 1. So then the vertex is -3, 1. And your last one, opposite of b, over 2 times, oh dear, make sure I put in parentheses, 2 times -2. And that should be giving you your x coordinate of 1. So now you have opposite of 1, oops, -2 times 1 squared plus 4 times 1 minus 3, and you should be getting -1. So your coordinate is 1, -1. Okie dokie, so now you have the vertex. So today we're going to learn to use the quadratic formula, which we have already done, and a lot of you guys already do in all of your classes. So the tricky part today is we're just going to be applying it to real world problems. Okay, so in your notes, if you're looking, I want to make a sketch first, so I also suggest that you make a sketch. So I'm going to sketch the x and y axis. Okay, and height is going to be here, and time is going to be here. So a projectile is launched with an initial velocity of 24 meters per second from a height of 4 meters. The height h in meters of the projectile after t seconds is found by the equation, and then there's your equation. So if this is the equation. The question asks, how long was the projectile in the air? So if here's where the projectile starts, it's going to go up like a parabola and then come back down. So this is where, this point right here is projectile hits the ground. So where projectile, which I'm just going to abbreviate, hits the ground. So that is what we're going to be calculating today using the quadratic formula. And we're only going to be getting the positive x value. So that, and if the real world question, you want the positive x value. Okay, so your formula is below. If you need to identify your A, B, and your C, go ahead and do so. A is -4.9, B is 24, and C is 4. So we're going to do the opposite of B, which is going to be the opposite of 24, plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times negative 4.9 times 4. And I'm going to extend my square root all over 2 times a. So what I like to do first is calculate that number under the radical. So I plug this into my calculator first, and then I'll be doing negative 24 plus the square root of that number, which is 654, over 2a, which is negative 9.8. So I do it that way. And then I will be doing negative 24 plus the square root of 654.4. And I put this into my calculator using parentheses, all over negative 9.8. Oops. And I get my answer of, that one should be giving you x equals 5.1 seconds. So after 5.1 seconds, the projectile hits the ground. So if you were going to do the negative one, so if it was a regular problem, you would do the opposite of 24 minus the square root of 654.4. I would be putting that in parentheses, all over negative 9.8, and that should be giving you x equals negative 0.161 seconds, which in this case we don't really need because we can't have negative time. Okay, so you can just cross that out if you want. All right, I'm only going to do a couple quadratic formula examples because you've done so many of them in the past. You do need to show all of your work, and that helps me kind of clue in to see where you made a mistake, if you made any. Okay, so I'm just going to do one example. If it's not a real world problem, you need to give both examples. So x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times 1 times 7 all over 2a. Okay, so again, what I typically do is calculate that number under the radical first. So that's going to be 8 squared minus 4 times 1 times 7. Oh, that worked out perfectly, and it worked out perfectly because that's a perfect square. So we have negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 36 over 2. So now if you're going to plug this into your calculator, you can do in parentheses plus negative 8 plus 6 over 2, and that will be giving you negative 1. And then I would also do negative 8 minus 6 over 2, making sure you put the top half in parentheses, and that should give you negative 7. So then your answers are x equals negative 1 and x equals negative 7. So what I would like you to do each time is, if you show your work and if I come around and you're not getting it correct, I will just kind of check in, but you want to make sure you show me what number you get under your radical. All of these except number 4, I'll put a star next to 4. 4 has a decimal, so if you kind of want to make that note. 5 has a decimal. 7 has a decimal. And 8. Okay? So again, if it's not a real world problem, you have to show both answers. Okay? So now I'm going to do a real world problem. And you don't have to draw in an actual axis, which I just think it helps you visualize. So there's my axes. Projectile, a ball is thrown upward at a speed of 50 feet per second if it is 6 feet in the air when it leaves the person's hand, and the path of the ball is right here. So there's the ball, and we are figuring that little spot out. So that is where the ball hits the ground, so that will tell us how long the ball was in the air. So we have A equals -16, B equals 50, C equals 6. So the opposite of B, plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times -16 times 6 all over 2 times -16. Okay, so that number under the radical is what you should be calculating right now. Hopefully you will check it with my number. That number, so 50 squared minus 4 times -16 times 6. So we get -50 plus or minus the square root of 2,884, and then 2a is -32. So again, you can do both answers and then just take the positive one. -50. So 2,884 is not a perfect square, so we just have to do this on our calculator and put that in parentheses. So that's a plus sign. All over -32. And that gives us x equals -0.1157. So we know that's not going to be our answer. So let's check our other one. -50 minus the square root of 2,884 all over -32. That should be giving us x equals 3.24. So that is our answer because it's positive. So 3.24 seconds. Okay, so at this point, you need to grab your classwork and complete it.